being here today for our webinar on the Sidewalk Cafe permit and other outdoor dining operations. Joining me today is Tony Bertuca, who heads the Public Way Use Division here at BACP. He will be doing most of today's presentation. And you also have Brian Gallardo from the Chicago Department of Transportation, and Jen Washington will be joining us from the Chicago Department of Cultural Affairs and Special Events to help answer all questions that you folks have related to all outdoor dining options. A little bit of housekeeping before we get started on today's webinar. This webinar is being recorded and it will be posted to our YouTube page. Following today's webinar, that's at youtube.com/ChicagoBACP. I'm typing that into the chat right now. That's youtube.com/ChicagoBACP. So following today's webinar, you can find this webinar and other ones on that YouTube page. Additionally, a big portion of today's webinar will be set aside for questions. We know that there's a lot of details that folks might have questions about as it relates to outdoor dining. So we want to make sure we answer those questions as best as possible. That's why we have Brian from CDOT and Jen from DCASE on along with Tony. So if you have any questions, please use the chat function for questions. Again, please use the chat for questions. I just typed into the chat. You can reply to that, send it to us, and we'll do our best to answer questions as they come along. Now, there may be, and there will likely be, detailed questions that folks have specifically on kind of the specific contours of your outdoor space. It may be the case that we are unable to answer every single specific question over the course of this webinar. And that's why you'll see at the bottom of each page, you'll find our general BACP email. That's bacpoutreach@cityofchicago.org. You can use this email address for any questions you have related to business here in Chicago, whether it's your Sidewalk Cafe, outdoor dining area, anything like that, or related to reopening or business licensing. This is our general outreach email. We'll also provide over the course of this webinar specific contact information for Sidewalk Cafes and for the expanded outdoor dining program. But your general email address, you'll see this at the bottom of every page, is bacpoutreach@cityofchicago.org. Again, we'll do our best to answer questions over the course of this training. If we're unable to answer them, please send us those questions via email. So without further ado, we will get started. Here's our agenda for today. I'm going to provide a quick overview of where we're at with the COVID-19 pandemic. Then I'm going to go into an overview of all the different outdoor options. And then Tony will take some time to go into detail on the Sidewalk Cafe permit, what it is, how to apply, and your requirements. And then I'll provide an overview of the expanded outdoor dining permit with Brian and Jen here to help with that. And then finally, we'll open it up for questions at the end, and we'll do our best, as I said, to answer as many questions as possible. Again, before we get started, we always kind of want to frame this conversation in where we're at in the COVID pandemic. Obviously, it's been over a year, but this is still the reality of our life here in Chicago and around the world. So we're still very much dealing with the pandemic, but things are going really, really well recently. You can see here we still are towards the higher risk when it comes to cases and emergency department visits, but our positivity rate and importantly our ICU beds are still in that, or have moved down to that low or moderate risk level. And importantly, most importantly, all four of these metrics that we're using here in the city to track the COVID-19 pandemic are declining, which is a really good sign for us moving forward and opening up, moving forward in our reopening. And I want to continue to stress the importance of getting everybody vaccinated as soon as possible. The only way we're going to fully open up and get back to normal is when that is the case. So numbers keep going down every day. Really, really good sign, but we're still in the pandemic. And what that means when we're talking about today's conversation is that outdoor is still far and away the safest. Everything coming from our local health department, from the state, from the national level is that it is much safer always to be outside. Outdoor dining is absolutely much safer than being inside, even if vaccinated, even as we open up more and more. We want to continue to prioritize outdoor dining, and we want to support you all in making sure you have what you need to operate outside. Really quickly, before I go into the details or pass it to Tony to go into the details on the Sidewalk Cafe permit itself, I want to remind everybody of what the most current regulations when it comes to outdoor dining are. So outdoor dining table size is limited to no more than 10 people. That's bigger than indoor. Indoor dining is limited to 6. Outdoor is limited to 10. Again, we want to encourage outdoor. It's safer as much as possible. Face coverings still need to be worn except when patrons are seated and actively eating or drinking. So anytime your staff walk up to a table or customers are walking around, they need to have face coverings on. Tables must be spaced so that patrons are 6 feet from patrons at other tables. Currently still, patrons must be seated when eating or drinking. And establishments must close by 1 a.m. However, your Sidewalk Cafe, your outdoor patio, your expanded outdoor dining area, they typically have earlier operating hours. So you must operate within your established hours of operation, depending on the specific permit you use to operate outside. So what do we mean when we say outdoor dining? What are the outdoor options? What is considered outdoors? And again, the thing that is very much preferable. There's a number of different options, as you hopefully know by now, that are considered outdoors. This means rooms with retractable roofs or spaces that are within 8 feet of walls that are at least 50% open. Those are considered outdoors. All the outdoor guidelines follow, and you do not need any additional permit or license for those. Rooftops, or if you have a permanent outdoor patio area, those require an outdoor patio license from BACP if you're serving alcohol. If you're not serving alcohol, you don't need to have a special license for that space. However, it must be part of your retail food license. You need to have that square footage part of your retail food license, your rooftop or your outdoor patio. If you want to operate on the sidewalk and you're a restaurant with a retail food license, then you need a Sidewalk Cafe permit from BACP. And that's what we're going to spend most of today's conversation talking about. If you are not a retail food establishment license, if you are a bar, a tavern, a place like that that does not serve food, then you could use this new permit that we created just for COVID, the expanded outdoor dining permit to operate at the sidewalk. If you want to operate on the street or on private property in a temporary basis, you want to close a parking lot just for this summer, for example, then you could use the expanded outdoor dining permit. And we'll talk about that a little bit at the end of this webinar. But again, we're spending most of today's presentation talking about Sidewalk Cafe permits. And now I'm going to pass it over to Tony. And Tony is going to take the next few slides to talk in detail on the Sidewalk Cafe permit. Tony?
Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us. Obviously, this is a very important part of your businesses right now, wanting to have outdoor dining because of the COVID restrictions. And for the last season and continuing into this season, we have been working very hard to try and accommodate as best we can and still keep the health and welfare of your workers, yourself, and the citizens all in mind. So a Sidewalk Cafe permit is an extension of your retail food establishment license or the indoor retail markets. Not to confuse anything, but to get a Sidewalk Cafe, you need to have a retail food establishment license, and it needs to be on public way, meaning the space between most likely your property line and the curb line. So we're going to go over the qualifications and what we need and what we do. If you've had one before, you know about the COVID reforms that helped go through more than that and get you more space on the sidewalk. And I'll go through that as we go through the rest of the slides. I don't think, can I change the slides here, guys?
Tony, if you can just tell me when to change the slides, if that works.
No worries. Change, please. Okay, a sidewalk cafe is permitted to operate on a sidewalk cafe on the sidewalk. Only businesses with a valid retail food may apply for that sidewalk cafe permit. The other options obviously are going to be discussed later. Applicants intending to serve liquor do need to have a valid liquor license pursuant to the municipal code of the city of Chicago. And sidewalk cafes, BYOB is not permitted in the sidewalk cafes. Next slide, please. So as of Monday, April 19th, 2021, all public way use permits for sidewalk cafes and all other public way use permits were migrated into the new City of Chicago licensing portal. The good thing is that you guys can apply for everything online. Notification to the alderman is done automatically, and we can process your permit right online. The requirements we'll go through later, but everything is downloadable, and you fill in the specs, and then we have a review. It then goes to the alderman for their recommendation of review, and then it goes through one final check for us to make sure you have all your documents. The new web portal will improve our efficiency and effectiveness of issuing these permits, allowing you to apply for new permits, renew your existing permits, pay for your fees, and any other outstanding debts online. We did just start this on April 19th, so we're a few weeks in. And as anyone knows, with something new, it is taking us a little bit longer to process, but we are working hard to get everything done as soon as possible, especially with the sidewalk cafes, because we know it's timely and we know that it's important to the survival of your businesses. Existing permittees, you'll need to create and log into the online portal. It's pretty simple and straightforward. There are instructions with a clickable PDF right in the main page, and you can claim your existing permits and manage your account through your login. The portal can be found by clicking on public way use icon, and there is the website and the direct link to the profile where you would log in and start your process. Next slide, please. The web portal includes the tutorials, like I said, and it teaches you how to create your account and claim your permit. Hard copy invoices for annual permit fees are no longer being mailed. All future invoices will instead be emailed, an emailed notification, let me be clear on that, and communicated through this web portal. As always, failure to pay your permit fees in a timely manner may result in penalties. We have been helping people who have been having issues with mail and because of shutdowns, but I think we're kind of past that point. But if there is someone that does have any issues with some late fees, just give us a call and we'll help work that out with you. We've been very, very fair. Let's just say that. It also puts holds on your business licenses. So failure to pay puts that debt on your account, and you will see that debt on your IRIS account as well. If you have any questions relating to creating the web permit account or facilitating your transactions, you can reach us at our general email box, which is publicwayuse@cityofchicago.org, or our public way use general information phone number, 312-744-5430. And just so you know, we are trying to respond as quick as we can to that number. We all also have, other calls as we're taking calls, you guys are calling at the same time. So we're trying to respond to the calls as quick as possible. Just be patient. And obviously the volume now is a lot more than it will be later on after everyone gets used to the format and everyone is into the system. But we are getting a lot of introductory, setup calls, and we're trying to answer them as quick as possible. So thank you for your patience on that. Next slide, please. Since March of 2019, Sidewalk Cafe permits have had a 12-month term. That term starts on March 1st and ends with the last day of February of the following year. All active Sidewalk Cafe permits right now, because of the COVID reforms, your permit was extended till May 31st of 2021, which is in a couple weeks. When you renew that permit, your permit term will be March 1st of 2021 through February 28th, 2022. The purpose and mentality behind why we did this is if people were trying to just get through this last couple months, and then they had a little extra time to decide if they were going to renew or not. Back in December, for the 2021-2022 season, the city council voted to continue to assist businesses with some COVID-19 reforms. Those main reforms were the 75% reduction fee. So the minimum fee traditionally was $600. That is now down to $150 for the full year. We are extending the cafe continuously to a neighboring property. And let me briefly talk about that. There are a couple restrictions. The restrictions are you cannot block an active business's windows. You cannot block any doorways of any buildings, even if the buildings are vacant. Traditionally, the best way for this to work is the cafe section would start on your property in front of your place of business and continuously extend to your neighbor's business. That is one neighbor, that is one storefront. We are trying to help you maneuver through this as best we can. But those are the two main things with the continuation benefit. We are issuing the Sidewalk Cafe permits again this season without going through the city council process. So once you submit your permit online, and once the alderman recommends and reviews the permit application, we are turning stuff around fairly quickly. Once everything is approved through the online portal, you will receive a notification that you can pay for your permit. Once your permit is paid for, it can be printed right from your computer. There's a print button in your web portal once it gets to that point. And then you just print your permit. When you print your permit, it prints your plan as well with a stamp on the corner from us at BACP. And then that is what you would post in your window or somewhere near your cafe, in a window or at the counter, just so it's visible and people can see that. Next slide, please. So basic cafe requirements. We have a minimum 6-foot pedestrian path. Our physical layout, including all the furniture, meaning your chairs or your benches and your tables, must be approved and must match the posted plan. Your entrances, you can have 2 entrances per section, and per ADA requirements, those entrances and exits must be between 3 and 5 feet wide. That is for not only handicap accessibility needs, but for cane detection needs as someone is walking down the sidewalk as well. Your barrier must completely enclose your Sidewalk Cafe. Barriers must be a minimum of 24 inches in height with a maximum of 36 inches in height. Your barrier cannot be bolted to the sidewalk, and your barrier must be 1 foot off the curb. Next slide, please. Parking meters, pay boxes, fire hydrants, newspaper stands, newspaper boxes are not permitted within the cafe. It also includes bike racks. Grates and vents need to be identified on your plans. Barriers, chairs, tables, benches, etc. should not be located on the grates and vents. Seating must be freestanding, and it must not be attached to any part of the barrier. That reason being, if God forbid there's an emergency and, emergency responders need to get through, and they can just push stuff to the side or move it so they can have access to wherever they need access to. Next slide, please. Setup requirements. The permanent cafe space is not to be used in the off months as storage for your furniture or snow. The cafe must be operational if it is up. Heating equipment is now allowed, must be identified on your plan with a 3-foot clearance from any structure. Any awning or canopy structure must have the proper permits as well. Thank God we're past this, but I'm going to go over it anyways. It remains the business's duty to remove snow from the public right of way in front of a licensed premise. Cafe structures must be removed when the building side cafe has 2 feet of snow of accumulation, and if a curbside cafe, any accumulation of snow. Those restrictions were done obviously before the COVID. Obviously, as long as we are making sure the sidewalk is clear and people are safe, that's kind of where we're the direction with those 2 restrictions in today's world. So next slide, please. Landscaping, the purpose of this is always to be continuous and be neighborhood aesthetically pleasing, and we want greenery on your barriers and have some kind of landscaping. And the goal is to keep that Sidewalk Cafe and the neighborhoods aesthetically pleasing. Obviously, during the winter restrictions, during the colder months, the permittee still needs to kind of have some kind of beautification requirements, but they don't need to be live plants. Again, this year they weren't too focused on that, but in when we get back to more normalcy, we still would like to see some kind of beautification on those barriers, just to keep that aesthetically pleasing mentality behind everything. Next slide, please. So responsibilities, we have the Chicago Municipal Code, Article 7, sidewalk cafes. We have the accessibility requirements for sidewalk cafes, and we have the rules and regulations for sidewalk cafes. All 3 of those, once you do log into the portal, are clickable PDFs. They also, if needed, you could unfortunately have to look in the municipal code, but we do have all that stuff accessible for you guys as attachments within the new web portal. Next slide, please.
I think that's it for Sidewalk Cafes. Did you have anything else you wanted to add on that?
Sure. So let's just couple things. One, let's make sure that we keep the pedestrian path clear. If you are in a situation where with combining our other outdoor options and you have questions, please give us a call. I know Brian will talk about the EOD permit options, and there are some areas that are taking up entire sidewalks, but then they're providing a pedestrian path on the curb lane through the Department of Transportation and the EOD permit. There are also, if you have questions regarding things with your outdoor patio and your sidewalk cafe, the general response on that is anything on the private property would be your outdoor patio, and everything on the sidewalk or outside the property line would be your sidewalk cafe. And if there is some kind of a combo that you're thinking of to be creative, let's just make sure both sides see not only a complete plan, but the plan that they are going to review for their portion of that outdoor dining for their specific permit. For those who have cafes, get your renewals in. You can do that right through the web portal. For new cafes, let's just make sure you complete everything and you provide everything through the online portal. So when you're doing that, if it tells you you're missing a document, we do not see that until that document is provided. The incomplete application does not go for intake review until the documents provided are downloaded into the system. So traditionally, we were able to process without the insurance for a sidewalk cafe. Now with the new system, it kind of keeps us in that application pending status until your sidewalk cafe insurance is submitted. And after everything is submitted, we have an intake review. So, and we've been turning that around fairly quickly, but just be patient. Don't think you did something wrong if it says it's in review with BACP. That means that we're making sure everything that you submitted to us is okay, and we're moving forward. If it isn't okay, we're responding right through the web portal, and you will get an email asking for whatever we need corrected or revised. Okay. Other than that, just be patient with the new system. Be patient with us. We're learning a little bit every day, just like you guys will be, and we're on top of it. But it is taking a tiny bit longer than normal, but it's not unreasonable. So, if there is an emergency, please just give us a call. We are responding to the emails as quick as we can as well. And I wish you the best of luck with your outdoor dining season as this weather eventually will start getting warm again. If there's any specific questions, or if there's anything that any of the panel thinks I've missed, I'd be more than willing to discuss.
Great, thank you, Tony. We do have a couple questions come in. Some of them are sort of related to sidewalk cafes and expanded outdoor dining permits. So if we can, we're going to take a few minutes to talk about some other outdoor dining options, and then we'll open it up for questions. So Tony, if you can stay on for a little bit, and once we're done with the expanded outdoor dining section, we'll open it up for questions on everything related to outdoor dining. So as Tony mentioned, most of what we talked about today is obviously about the Sidewalk Cafe. We want to make sure to provide an overview of the expanded outdoor dining permit. Now, the Sidewalk Cafe, as Tony mentioned, this is something that we've had for a long time around Chicago. It wasn't new to COVID. The expanded outdoor dining permit, though, is something new that we created in response to the COVID-19 pandemic. It was a temporary program created last year, and it was extended to last through this year as well. And there's really three options when we're talking about the expanded outdoor dining permit. First, you see these all around the city. You see actual full street closures. Those are not just from one restaurant. Those are chambers, SSAs, business service organizations, or three or more establishments applying together, and they can close a street to multiple bars and restaurants to participate. That's the first option. Again, that's something new, expanded outdoor dining permit specifically for COVID. Second option is an individual bar or restaurant can apply to temporarily operate in private property. You see these all around the city as well. You see folks that are using temporary spaces that are not designed, that are not permanently outdoor dining areas, parking lots, things like that. They can now be turned temporarily into outdoor dining areas through the expanded outdoor dining permit. That's the second option. The third option is for liquor-only establishments, bars, taverns, breweries. They can now operate in that sidewalk space where it looks like a sidewalk cafe. They can do that through the expanded outdoor dining permit. As Tony said, the Sidewalk Cafe is only for restaurants and other retail food establishments. But if you are liquor only, if you're a bar and you want to operate on your sidewalk, you can use the expanded outdoor dining permit. Little bit about it. If you had, again, this program has been extended into this year. If you currently have an expanded outdoor dining permit and that permit is near expiration, you may request an extension by emailing sepermits@cityofchicago.org and make sure to include your DOT number that came with your permit. Again, that's if you have an EOD permit, you've operated for a while, and it's near expiration. All you have to do is request an extension by emailing sepermits@cityofchicago.org. However, if you previously had an expanded outdoor dining permit and you stopped operating for any reason, then you must reapply. Let's say you had one last summer, You used it up until the fall, but in the fall, when it started getting cold, you stopped operating your EOD. If that's the case, then you must reapply, and we'll talk about that in just a slide or two. A little bit about the permit. There is no permit fee, but if you are serving liquor, there is a temporary liquor license fee. I believe it's just $250. It's not a huge fee, and it'll last for the permit term of 180 days. This program, as we said, it's something new created during COVID. As many of you know, last year around this time, we were kind of building the plane as we were flying it, and it was put together by 3 different departments that have some oversight over this. That's Cultural Affairs and Special Events, BACP, that's us, and Transportation. And you have representatives from all departments here today. In addition to these departments, depending on the specifics of the application, they're reviewed by our OEMC, that's our Office of Emergency Management, the Fire Department, the Police Department, and the local alderman in certain permit cases. So how to apply? Applications are submitted through DCASE. If you go to chicago.gov/DCASE and click on the Special Event Permits button, you can apply. It's through that same permit application. You need your floor plan or a site plan. You need a security plan, a certificate of insurance, and if you're serving alcohol outside, you need to have your city special event and your state special use liquor license with applicable dram shop insurance. Great, that's a quick overview of the expanded outdoor dining permit. We have an entire separate webinar fully on the EOD where we go into all the details, but we wanted to provide a quick overview to make sure folks knew all the different options for operating outside. We want to make sure that everyone is aware of all the different opportunities out there. Jen or Brian, is there anything else you want to add as it relates to the expanded outdoor dining program?
No, I think you hit all the points. The important part, if you are asking for an extension on your expanded outdoor dining permit, we will check the insurance to make sure that it covers the new dates that you're requesting.
Great, thank you.
And I would add just one thing to that, and that is when you submit the insurance, please note that if you are operating on the public way, meaning on the sidewalk, the curb lane, or the street, make sure your insurance names the Chicago Department of Transportation, not just Business Affairs and Consumer Protection.
Great, thank you, Brian and Jen. Now we're going to open it up for questions. Again, if anybody has any questions as it relates to outdoor dining in any way, this is the opportunity for it. You have all the experts here. If there's any specific questions, if you have any general business questions that aren't answered today, again, BACP outreach at cityofchicago.org. If you have any specific questions about Sidewalk Cafe that aren't answered today, you can send those to publicwayuse@cityofchicago.org. Again, if you send that to BACP outreach, we'll make sure it gets to the right place. So I saw a couple questions come in. First question, and this is a great one, and I think it applies for everyone here, but if I can start with Tony here. In the drawings of my patio that I am sending to the alderman and then eventually on to the city, do these drawings need to reflect tables 6 feet apart? You know, right now tables need to be spaced 6 feet apart, but we expect sometime over the summer that COVID restrictions will be lifted. And this individual would go from 3 tables to 4 tables in that case. I think the question probably applies to many individuals here. In the plans that are submitted, do they need to have the tables 6 feet apart? And then what if restrictions change and they're able to move tables down the road?
No, so you should do your plan with full capacity, and then you are still obligated to abide by those COVID health guidelines. So if you have 5 tables, then I would put your plan at 5 tables, and so you have full capacity when it does open up. But you do have to still abide by the health guidelines provided through the various enforcing departments.
Great, thank you, Tony. Question here, and this is something that probably a couple folks have. Question just kind of with this new portals and how it relates to starting an application and going to the alderman's office. If a business brings an application to the ward office, should we have the ward office, should we have them use the portal? What exactly is that process?
So for the next couple weeks, you have both options. In a few weeks, you're not going to have that option. I want to say our deadline is going to be in 2 weeks. So right now, if you have a paper application, that will go to the alderman, and then they'll probably tell you to pick it up, or they may email it to us themselves. Whatever their process is, that's kind of, we let them get it to us the way they want to get it to us. I suggest, if you haven't started yet, to use the online portal. You don't have to take anything to the alderman's office if you start this in the online portal. Once you have a complete application and we complete the intake review, then it goes to the alderman for review, and they log into the portal and they do their recommendation through the online portal. So that's the most simple way. If you've started or if you've turned one in already, you would email us that application, and then we would actually, unfortunately, have to do it from the back end and put your stuff into the system. But we're doing that during this month of transition, so that if people had stuff in process, it wouldn't hinder them as well. So if you haven't started yet, I would log in, register, and start through the online portal. If you haven't done your renewal yet, do it through the online portal. If you have something in limbo or you started it and it's at the alderman's office, we are accepting those paper copies for the next couple of weeks. The alderman does not process that. If it's a paper copy, they do their normal process of review, they sign it, and then you guys or the alderman's office or his or her staff can forward that on to us.
Thanks, Tony. I had a question here coming in. Where is the web portal address for renewing? I'm going to type that into the chat again. I've just sent that link via the chat. Additionally, you can go to chicago.gov/BACP. One of the main icons right on top on the BACP website is a public way use permits icon. If you click that, you can find all the information you need. You can find the link to apply, renew for your public way use permit right there. I have a question here. This is either for you, Tony, or for you, Brian, because I'm not 100% sure what it is referring to. What about the blue chairs that are bolted to the ground and are not being used? Can those be removed? Brian, I'm not sure if that's best for you.
That, yeah, I'm thinking they're probably referring to something that's part of like a streetscape setup, or possibly an existing make way for people layout that where there are seats for public use. And the answer to that is, if they're already out there, they likely will not be removed, but I would need to see the specific location and what they were asking. But if it's part of a streetscape layout or a existing make way for people location, then my initial instinct is to think that they won't be, but I won't say that's 100% until I see the specific details.
Great. So whoever had sent that question, if you send us the specifics there, maybe with a photo if possible, to our BACP outreach at cityofchicago.org, we'll pass that along to Brian and we'll get you an answer to that question. Question, this may be for you, Jen. Is it the same insurance for indoor or outdoor? Can you talk a little bit about the insurance requirements for the expanded outdoor dining permit?
Expanded outdoor dining is for outdoor service only. So the insurance would be for your outdoor space that you're using to extend your dining room. Is that the question?
I believe so. Tony, is there anything else? Is there anything you would add regarding insurance requirements for sidewalk cafes?
This is an additional insured in regards to the Sidewalk Cafe. And then the endorsement policy page needs to be and the city of Chicago's Department of Business Affairs needs to be on that endorsement as well. So it not only has to be in the bottom corner, that description language needs to be there, and the endorsement policy page needs to be as part of it. And that's been a requirement for the last probably 5-6 years, so it's nothing new. And the sample is out there as well. So it's pretty clear cut. Sometimes the insurance companies, because they're a broker, can't get this done, but they have to send it out. But for us, this is nothing new, and this has been the requirement per our law department for at least the last, I'd say, 5 seasons.
Great. Thank you, Tony. Next question, and this is something I can answer. Does the permit apply for a parking lot too? So if you are looking to operate in a private parking lot, you can use the expanded outdoor dining permit. Again, that's something that you apply through DCASE. If you go to chicago.gov/DCASE and click on the special event permits icon, you can apply for expanded outdoor dining program in order to operate outside in a private parking lot. Now, if you're serving alcohol, that parking lot needs to be adjacent to your property. You also, depending on the specifics of the parking lot, will need to have some sort of barriers up to ensure that vehicles aren't driving into that parking lot. But that you can use the expanded outdoor dining permit. And expanding sort of on this question, I believe this will be for you, Jen. This individual operates an indoor live music venue. Would they be able to use the expanded outdoor dining permit so they can use their outdoor backyard as a waiting area that can have seating and serving drinks? Is that something that would be permissible through the expanded outdoor dining permit program?
Brian, I have to help me with this, but if you have food and liquor service inside, yes, it can be part of your expanded outdoor dining and extend to that back area.
Yeah, I would agree with Jen that if you already have food and liquor service, you can use EOD to expand into that area.
Great, thank you guys. Question for Tony, and this is as it relates to the new permit portal. Can multiple accounts claim a permit?
Multiple accounts, meaning established people to log into the portal, or multiple accounts, meaning business accounts?
Can I have, I'm not 100% sure, can I have whoever, whoever just submitted that question, please provide just a little bit more detail on that question, and we'll come back to you and answer that in just 1 minute. Next question, and I know we don't necessarily have a definitive answer here, Tony, but how long can we expect the intake review process to take for Sidewalk Cafe permit renewals on the new portal?
So I assume you meant once everything is complete and the alderman reviews our intake review. Obviously, we're still working through this. I would say, 4 to 5 business days would be a good gauge once we're in full swing. We are a little bit behind that right now, but I did catch up a lot today, and by the end of the week we should be at the point where its turnaround would be 5 days.
Great, thank you, Tony. Just waiting for here's a little clarity on that question. Can multiple accounts, such as users, not business accounts, claim a permit?
Yeah, so the first person that would go in and establish the account, we would make the admin if there isn't an admin, a company admin already. Anyone that after the company admin is established, everyone else that requests will get that sent to the company admin, and they would have to do the approval on it. So if, say, there's 5 staff in an office and they all want to have access, once that manager establishes their login, we would establish them as the company admin, and then every request after that would go directly to the manager for approval.
Thanks. Sticking with you here, Tony, can you apply to use to take an existing outdoor patio and expand that outdoor patio onto the sidewalk using a sidewalk cafe?
Well, an existing outdoor patio would not be a sidewalk cafe. An existing outdoor patio would be on private property.
I think, and maybe if this individual can maybe provide a little clarity or send us an email so we can look kind of at the specifics there. My understanding of this question might be if you have an outdoor patio that is on private property but is adjacent to a sidewalk, can you get a sidewalk cafe permit on that sidewalk? So now the patio extends from the outdoor patio onto the sidewalk. Is that something that would be permissible?
That would not be my call. That would be a liquor issue.
Gotcha.
Because I think the liquor requirement is the more for the outdoor patio is a lot more stringent than my restriction. So my guess would be that they have to have the permanent barrier up for that outdoor patio, but I don't know what the concession is if they want it flowing into the sidewalk cafe.
Great. That's a good clarifying point. If this individual, if you can just send us an email to bacpoutreach@cityofchicago.org. We don't have anyone from our liquor team on, but we're happy to get you some clarity on that question. Again, bacpoutreach@cityofchicago.org. Looking through questions, again, please feel free to submit your questions via the chat, and we will get your questions answered as soon as possible. Or again, you can reach out to us at that BACP outreach email at cityofchicago.org, and we'll get you answers. I'll stick around. Let me scroll through and make sure I didn't miss any questions. We'll stick around for a couple minutes in case other folks have questions. Tony, Brian, Jen, is there anything else you would like to add that maybe wasn't discussed or would like to provide additional clarity regarding?
No, I would just say if there's any specific questions still out there for expanded outdoor dining, feel free to email that sepermits@cityofchicago.org, and we'll be happy to get back to you.
Here's a quick question, Tony. What are the Sidewalk Cafe operating hours?
Per ordinance, it is 8 a.m. to 12 p.m. Now, if due to COVID, those restrictions are more stringent, I have no control over that. Also, some ward areas, because of highly residential areas, the alderman may make the close time a little earlier, and that kind of is why the neighborhood is involved in some of the Sidewalk Cafe stuff, because it affects the neighborhoods. So that's kind of something that's also not in my control, but the traditional hours of operation are 8 a.m. to 12 p.m.
Thank you. And let's cross our fingers. I do not imagine that right now the COVID restriction is 1 a.m. And I do not imagine that we'll be going more strict than that. So let's hope that that's the case. Quick question here, and I think I can provide some clarity. If a business license is currently being renewed, can we upload the old business license in order to proceed with the Sidewalk Cafe permit renewal process? A quick point on that, due to COVID, all business licenses have been extended. So no business licenses have expired since March 15th of last year through June 15th, still upcoming of this year. So if you have an old business license, it most likely has not expired. So hopefully that question, all licenses have been extended. So hopefully that question is does not apply anymore. But Tony, anything else to add there?
It needs to be valid. It needs to be valid when you apply, and it needs to be valid before I can issue.
Great. That's a good point. But again, any business license that would have expired over the last year is still considered valid. So it should hopefully not run into any issues there. Great. Well, I want to thank you, Tony, especially, and Brian and Jen as well for joining. Again, don't hesitate to follow up with any emails to any of the different email addresses we gave you today. You can always use the BACP outreach email, and we'll make sure to direct it to the right person. Again, huge thank you, Tony, Brian, and Jen for joining. Don't hesitate to reach out. We want to make sure that everybody is outside operating. I know it's kind of chilly today, but it's getting cold, getting warmer. So hopefully, we get outside and have a successful outdoor cafe season. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.